Okay, we're ready to get started. Good morning, everyone here in North America, and for those of you in Europe and other parts of the world, good evening. My name is Matthew Gratton, and I'll be your host for today's webinar presentation titled Transform Your Lotus Notes Environment. So I want to talk a little bit about today's agenda. We want to cover why companies are moving their applications off of Lotus Notes, the options for moving these applications, as well as some of the challenges they're facing in migrating their Lotus Notes applications. Along with that, we'll show a demo of a real-world Notes application that was migrated to the Microsoft platform with Unified's Composer solution. Before I start, I'd like to mention there is a toolbar at the bottom of the page for posting questions, so please use the Q&A button, which will help us manage everyone's questions from one place. Post any questions anytime during the presentation, and we've set aside some time after the demo for Q&A, as we'd like to make this as interactive and informative as possible. I'd also like to introduce Suresh Kumar, who's joining us today to present the demo of the converted Notes application. We're real lucky to have Suresh here for this demo today, as he's on the front lines, directly involved with many of our customer migration projects, and he has a real good understanding of their environments and the challenges that they're facing. I want to give you a little bit of background about Unified. We're a publicly traded software company. We've got a 25-year history, which includes being the first company to deliver a relational database in the Unix environment. Today, the company's core focus is really in three areas: relational databases, rapid application development software tools for building business applications on both the Windows and Java platforms, and solutions that assist companies in modernizing their legacy applications, which will really be the focus of today's presentation, which is migrating Lotus Notes applications to the Microsoft platform. All right, let's first cover why companies are looking at migration of their Lotus Notes applications. So what are the drivers here around transitioning? You may have a corporate mandate for no new development in Lotus Notes, which has been put in place as part of an overall strategy to consolidate platforms to reduce your costs. I can tell you that many application projects we're engaged with are really driven by the organization standardizing on Microsoft Exchange for email. The applications may be better suited for a relational database, become critical to the business, and really need to be integrated into the technology infrastructure the enterprise is standardizing on. We hear it all the time about Notes applications that have grown and grown over the years and really are now being used on an enterprise scale. So your complex, transactional, really heavy business logic Notes applications that need to scale are tied to the compliance requirements such as SOX. More frequently, we're hearing about concern over the lack of availability of Notes developers in the market. For example, we're working with a federal agency that's going to lose 2/3 of their Notes development team to retirement in the next 2 years, and replacing that talent is going to be a real tough task in today's market. So this is a real major risk for them and one of the key drivers in them deciding to move off of Notes. Of course, you also have mergers that may involve a Notes shop and a Microsoft shop, and the long-term strategic path is usually to consolidate the companies on one email and application platform. So we come across companies that still have hundreds, sometimes thousands of Notes applications that range from discussion databases to your complex Lotus script-based applications. To take inventory of their Notes environments, you're either going to do it manually or you're going to use one of the available tools to do the inventory, which involves usage data and putting those apps in various buckets based on complexity. You know, either way you go there, the goal is to identify and remove duplicate applications and applications that are no longer in use. After doing that environment assessment, you really need to determine what the options are for each application to be moved to the .NET platform. Retire in place with packaged applications are pretty self-explanatory, but let's spend some time really on the rewrite and migration piece. Customers are hesitant, and rightfully so, on embarking on a rewrite effort for their Notes apps to be migrated to the .NET platform. You know, there's a lot of time, cost, and risk involved with re-architecting and rewriting applications from scratch, and this can be pretty overwhelming. We've heard all the various horror stories associated with rewrite projects out there in the market. There are some applications, though, I got to tell you, that are better suited for a rewrite. Examples, you know, applications that have obsolete business logic or no longer really meeting the business requirements of your organization. They will most likely require a major re-architecture and a change in business functionality in the initial move to the Microsoft platform. However, where applications meet many of the current business requirements, A primary objective of the customer is to preserve the business functionality and minimize disruption to the business users in the initial move to the Microsoft platform. This is where migration is the right choice. So here's a list of some key objectives for migration we're capturing from some of our customer engagements. Preserving the business functionality and minimizing disruption to the business through a like-for-like migration continues to be a top priority in the market. To that point, recently there was an interesting Harvard Business Review article that conducted a study on a platform migration for a large financial institution. An important thing that came out of this study, and a key reason the project was so successful, was attributed to the project leader's approach to try and mimic the old system's look and feel, at least for a while, to speed adoption of that new platform. Customers want a vendor who will do what they say they'll do. They want the metrics for the migration project clearly defined, and they want follow-through on the commitments that were made and the delivery on the results that were promised. Nothing really new here. They want a solution that's cost-effective and less risk than a rewrite. We had one of our customers sum it up in a statement: "We are evolutionists, not revolutionists." Unify also views migration really as an evolution. You know, you're preserving that existing application by transitioning it to a modern platform in an environment where it can continue to be enhanced and extended to meet the needs of the business. Okay, this slide summarizes our Composer solution. It's a little busy, but let me work from left to right here. The Analyze, Refine, Target, or ART process provides the necessary data for you to understand your notes application complexity really at that code attribute level. So we refine the migration project scope, so we only migrate what is necessary to target the right landing space in the Microsoft stack and SharePoint InfoPath or ASP.NET. I'll get into the targeting piece some more on the next slide, as this is an important part of the process to provide our customers the data they need to build an effective deployment strategy to Microsoft. The metric-driven approach is documented to provide us and you a clear direction on what is required to achieve a successful migration project. We complete this early on in the engagement process, and it actually acts as a good way to qualify Unify out. If we come across an objective of yours we can't satisfy, we'll shake your hand and maybe refer you to another company. But the key is we don't waste your time. Finally, both the ART process and metric-driven approach help us deliver Composer as a fixed fee, fixed scope engagement. The graphic shows how we decompose and reassemble the Notes application on the Microsoft platform using the Composer solution. Composer is a software plus services offering to deliver you a like-for-like production-ready application. Our process is end-to-end. It includes an analysis and discovery phase to define the project scope, the migration, a QA and test phase, and deployment. So we're going to hold your hand here through the entire process to give you a complete end-to-end migration solution. Composer can migrate all of your Notes apps from your templates, where it's just data migration to your custom templates, and all the way upstream really to your complex applications. The focus of this presentation is really on our ability to migrate the complex applications, as that is our most value-added solution. All right, so the key components of a complex Notes application migration that are migrated to the Microsoft platform. You've got your data from the Notes application that's migrated into a normalized SQL Server database. The business logic is restructured as C# web services in Visual Studio. The user interface is transformed into SharePoint lists, web parts, and ASP.NET applications. And your ACL security is mapped into Microsoft Active Directory services. All of these are key to a like-for-like migration to minimize disruption to your end users. The demo portion of this webinar will show how the Composer solution addresses all four of those key areas. The right-hand side of the illustration shows the various layers in the Microsoft stack that will be populated by the migrated applications. I should mention that if we're taking the data of a relational database, it doesn't matter if it's SQL Server or maybe use Oracle. Another thing I'd like to key on is the fact that we avoid vendor lock-in by providing you all the migrated source code and any associated documentation in a Visual Studio development project. This is so you can effectively support the application from an ongoing perspective, and if you choose to, it can be optimized with enhanced workflows. You can improve the UI, integration can be brought into play using web services, etc. Customers have a very important decision to make on whether the application should go to SharePoint or ASP.NET. At the recent Tech Ed show in Orlando, we got lots of questions about our ability to migrate complex notes applications to SharePoint and how we still deliver a like-for-like migration. Today's demo is going to focus on a complex application that was migrated to ASP.NET. So I'll just talk briefly about the SharePoint migration of a complex application. To deliver a SharePoint like-for-like application, we create a SharePoint site with pages that reflect views and forms as web parts. Navigation is generated as a quick link list of views the user can navigate to. The page security is controlled by SharePoint roles, views, and forms. Data security is handled by Active Directory. The data can be loaded into the SharePoint repository to support full SharePoint search capability. Also, just like the ASP.NET application, all the source code is provided so that the migrated app can be easily enhanced, modified, and supported by you, the customer. Here are some examples of application attributes that are identified in the Analyze, Refine, Target process with Composer. Our analysis is going to provide you the necessary data to make informed decisions on the best landing spot in Microsoft for your Notes applications. The yellow check marks identifies functionality in Notes that doesn't migrate natively to SharePoint versus ASP.NET. This is going to help determine which Microsoft platform should be considered when migrating specific Notes applications as a like-for-like migration. ASP.NET represents the most flexible platform, but there is an opportunity to break the migrated Notes applications into web parts and host them in SharePoint. This both A, offers organizations flexibility when trying to determine how to best leverage their Microsoft platform investment, and B, regardless of their choice of ASP.NET or SharePoint, still deliver their end users a like-for-like application experience on the new platform. So we put together a brief overview of a customer engagement we have. It's a migration project we're working on with a bank in the Midwest. So the drivers involved an email move to Exchange and a long-term strategy to consolidate on the Microsoft platform. You know, very common drivers we see in migrations. Challenges: what's my cost? How long will it take? And what will my impact be to my end users? They completed an environment assessment, determined that almost 2/3 of their inventory needed to be migrated, which included a large percentage of complex mission-critical applications. They wanted the flexibility to leverage SharePoint for their complex applications and still get a like-for-like migration to ease the end-user adoption. Unify was selected as their migration partner for two reasons, both to our strong process and Composer Solutions' ability to handle all of their key objectives. We completed recently a successful pilot with this bank, and we're currently engaged in a phase 1 migration project. Now we're going to go into the demonstration. Some things to keep in mind during this demo. We're showing you a real-world Notes application from a customer migration project. Be sure to note the richness and complexity of the application. We're going to start in the Notes app and then show the migrated application as well as the migrated code underneath. We'll address the challenges of user interface, business logic, security, and the database. This is a production-to-production migration. Be sure, again, to note the like-for-like user interface and application functionality. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Suresh Kumar to handle the demo portion of this presentation.
Thanks, Matt. So as part of the demonstration today, what we would be walking through is, like Matt had mentioned, a real-world Notes application. And also, what I would be showing you is a migrated like-for-like application on the Microsoft .NET platform. And we do offer solutions in SharePoint, but as of for today's demonstration, we won't be showing any of those demos for you. So just give me a minute here, and I'm going to switch to the Notes client environment to actually show you the Notes application. So what you should be seeing on the screen currently is a typical Notes application, and I'm just going to walk through this application. So this is actually a work order application that allows end users to schedule work order through repairs for vehicle repairs. So this particular application has, like you can see, a lot of navigation built into it through navigators and outlines, allowing the users to interact with the document data based on different categories. So here, typical of any Notes applications, it allows for categorization of the various views, drilling down into document data. And like you can see, there's a lot of totaling and summing of information that's actually part of some of these views. Let me go into another view on the left side navigation pane here to actually show you some of the other critical components of typical migration projects that we encounter. So one of the key things is the rich text fields that are key in some of these user interfaces, allowing users to actually upload documents as part of the document data itself. So like you can see on this particular screen for the work order, there's a Word document that's actually part of the rich text field that's actually embedded within the specific field that you're seeing within the UI. And then you have things like sections, allowing the user to expand and collapse, having tabs, allowing users or the developers to actually categorize information for easy access for users to get to. And also, this particular application has some of the controls like your date controls, time controls, and also it has 4 different databases that is dependent for data lookup. So there's a lot of DB lookups that's happening within this particular database, allowing the user to select things like the equipment number, which is actually being extracted out of another Notes database in the backend. Let me just click on some of the other views. Like you can see, this has a whole bunch of twisties, allowing users to interact with a categorized view with summing and totaling and coloring and things like that that are very typical of any Notes apps. And it also has things like pickups and a lot of business logic that's behind these applications. So say for instance, a work location of Alpine is selected, and there's sufficient business logic behind this that allows further filtering of data for the vendor name, allowing them to select the appropriate vendor name for that particular work location that they're choosing. And like I said, this interacts with external databases. So as soon as I typed in an equipment number, it actually brought information about that particular vehicle for this particular work order that the user is entering. So I'm going to cancel out of this particular application, and not going to spend anything more other than just wanted to highlight some of the features in this Notes application. So when I show you the migrated Composer solution, you will actually see how close we are, like Matt was mentioning, for a like-for-like solution on the .NET platform. So what you should be seeing on the screen now is actually our migrated solution. So this is a production-ready application. Like you can see, we bring across all this UI that is actually related to the Notes application in the same fashion. Like for the views, you have the twisties allowing the user to drill down into the actual data in categorized views. Like as I'm clicking through the various twisties, like the Notes application, you have a similar kind of a behavior, allowing users to actually see data with the various summing capabilities on these views, totaling capabilities within these particular views, and also, the documents itself are actually migrated. So some of the key components that we target for actually migration for these Composer projects is one is your user interface. So in this case, the user interface that's actually tied to this particular application is exactly the same as you see in your current Notes client applications. So if I drill down into a specific document for this particular record, you can actually see, we bring across all the various sections that are actually tied to the particular document data that's in the Notes world. And one of the other examples is the rich text field, where we actually bring across the Notes rich text fields with the specific attachments that's actually tied to the document data for that particular record. The navigation, we bring across all the various navigators, the outlines that is actually tied for users to, navigate through the application. Let me go ahead and click on another view here and get to another document, allowing you to actually show you that we actually retain also the other capabilities of Notes, where by default the document, as soon as you open the document, it's actually in a read-only mode, just like Notes, and then clicking on Edit actually takes you into an edit mode for that particular document. So here's the rich text control that I was talking about, and what we do as part of the solution is there's a lot of Ajax components that are actually built into the user interface and the way the application deals with the server business logic that we migrate, so that there's not a lot of page refreshes and postbacks that typically happen on these applications. So as you're navigating through various sections of the applications, and like you are very well aware that typically Notes apps, based on a user input, there's a lot of expanding of categories and unhiding of input fields and objects on screens that typically happen. So we actually support all those through typically Ajax components that are actually built into the solution. You see in this case, there's also your calendar controls that are actually tied into the user interface. And let me get out of this particular entry here and go into creation of a new work order, so that I can actually show you some of the dependent database lookups that typically happen in a migrated app. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pick up a work location. So there's this pick list that actually comes, a dialog list, allowing you to select data, and like you can see, it behaves exactly like your Notes application, where all the business logic that's actually tied to the various pick lists and dialog lists that actually filter out data is actually brought across. Once I finish some of the demonstration components for this migrated app, I will get into Visual Studio and actually show you some of this the code that's behind these migrated solutions. And let's say we want to actually choose the same equipment number that we had chosen. So you can actually see it actually populated all your vehicle information that's actually tied to that particular equipment number that I just entered. So same behavior, retaining all the functionality, kind of reducing the training required for end users, once the application is migrated. So minimizing the risk of, end user adoption of these particular applications in the new platform for you. In this rich text field, you have the capability to actually allow you to choose attachments from your client. So you could actually attach any document that you might want to as part of this particular rich text field. The same color combinations, the style sheets that are actually applied to these solutions are very similar to the ones that are currently in the Notes environment. So you can see that when we talk about like for like, it is truly a like for like solution, and we make sure that as part of our methodology that we follow for migrations, there's this whole QA that's actually done that actually certifies these applications once the migration is done internally, so that it actually meets the functional requirements for a like for like application in the new platform. So now let me go ahead and switch to Visual Studio to actually show you, the application source. So what you're seeing here is, from an architectural standpoint, we actually have the application split into the various layers. You have your presentation layer that actually is nothing but a series of ASP.NET pages representing Lotus Notes views, forms, and subforms. So that's what you're actually seeing as part of the ASP.NET forms that are in here. And if I actually look up the work order entry form, we actually provide solutions in Visual Studio so that you can actually utilize the inbuilt editing features from within Visual Studio to actually edit these application solutions. So this also enables you to enhance or extend these applications so that you could actually add any kind of .NET controls that you might want to once the applications have been migrated over to the .NET platform. So that you can actually leverage the the benefits of .NET or the Visual Studio environment for editing and managing these applications. Now you can see on the left side you have your application codes. So we actually try to retain the same kind of structure you typically have in your Notes development environment. So you have your agents. We bring across all your scheduled and non-scheduled agents. We actually deploy the agents as Windows services as part of the the service engagement for the migration projects. So we have actually used the Windows services so that it's very easy for you to manage these application agents once it's been migrated over. We also provide the capability of scheduling these agents like you do both in a very simple scheduling fashion as well as the cron type of scheduling features that are available. So we actually provide support for those things. And like you can see on the screen now, this is actually a typical agent that in this example is actually interacting with an external database and then comparing documents and then copying over documents to that particular database and actually sending out an email to the user who is typically an admin, notifying them of any kind of logs with regards to what's really copied and what's not copied as part of the agent services. In terms of forms, you actually have the UI piece, but then the business logic that's actually part of these particular forms are split into two. So you actually have your base meta class that actually defines the various attributes that are part of the document itself. So this actually translates into your tables within the SQL repository that we migrate the document data to. So we have the provisions to actually migrate data to any relational database of your choice. It can be SQL Server 2005, Oracle, DB2, anything of your choice within your enterprise. So like you can see here, the metadata actually defines the various columns that are part of the data that's for this particular form, which actually translates into a table in your relational model. And also you have the capability to actually specify things like display formats and everything else that actually is tied to the data being actually stored and retrieved back from the database for display back to the user through the user interface. Now the manager class that's actually tied to this particular form is where all your business logic is residing. So this includes all your computed fields. Like you can see an example here, this is a computed field that's actually brought over. And what we also do as part of the solution offering is we actually provide you with a composer framework that is nothing but a extension of your Notes emulation framework in the .NET world. So you will see, as you're scrolling down the code here, things like your add commands. So we have retained all the typical names of your add functions and your scripting support that you currently have in the C# world with our own Notes emulation framework, so that if there is existing staff who's actually moving to a C# a development environment, they have the capability to actually see what the migrated code looks like and understand what the migrated code is supposed to be doing. So.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that this is really important as part of a training process for a lot of our customers. When they're transitioning their developers from Notes to .NET, it acts as a real helpful thing for them to see that source code and to be able to find things specific on the Visual Studio development environment for applications that they built in Notes.
One other example is, typically, you have query save, query open kind of methods within your migrated code. So, we retain the names so that, you can actually relate back to, what really happens and, during, a query save process within the form, it's the same thing that happens in the migrated application. So like you can see in this case, there's the query save, all the code is all in C#. What we do as another thing that I wanted to highlight here is also that everything that's actually exposed as your views and things like that, all the business logic that's actually there, we expose them also as web services so that it allows your enterprise, third-party applications or applications that you might write going forward in the Microsoft stack to actually interact with some of the business logic that's in these Notes applications which have been written over the years. Before I get into showing you some of the web services, let me just click on some of the pick lists that are in here, your subforms, your views. So these are all the code for the various views that are actually migrated. Some of the other typical examples of migrated pieces of functionality, like your address books that are typically part of the Notes applications, all get migrated into a names control within the .NET solution. And the underlying provider for that is Active Directory. So that's one of the key components that actually drives the whole security for the new application environment. So all your existing ACL that's currently in the Notes world is actually migrated and is actually put into an XML file, like you can see on the screen now, with the various roles and the various users and roles that are actually users and groups that actually are tied to these particular application roles in the new world. So all these are actually translated into either Active Directory, SAM account names, or user principal names that however you want to configure them for lookups, or it could actually point to group names that actually will get translated, and all your user authentication, user authorizations will actually be served up through Active Directory going forward in the migrated solution. So like you can see in this example, there's also things like custom roles that are actually brought over as part of the security migration. Now switching back to the data itself, so what I'm showing you is actually the SQL Server environment through Studio, and here's an example of the work order form that gets translated. So you should actually be seeing columns within this particular work order form. So we actually bring across all your readers, authors fields. So as part of the data migration using our data pump tool during a deployment, we actually try to translate all your existing readers and authors fields to map to existing AD usernames as part of the migration. And like you can see, we actually try to determine, the column widths and stuff for most of the columns as far as we can identify as part of the analysis that we do to actually create these tables. But if we are not able to identify certain column attributes like the width and things like that, because Notes doesn't allow, or Notes doesn't put the the onus on the developers to actually specify a maximum length for specific columns. In those cases, we actually provide a safe width for these columns in the relational tables that we create. What you also see is things like Notes ID that we actually bring across. These are critical because this actually allows you to tie back into response docs, and also like I was mentioning, the rich text fields that's actually part of the Notes applications that are migrated. Those are actually translated into a blobs table where we actually hold the images, so you can actually see that the Notes ID and the field name that are actually holding that particular attachment in the document data in your Notes world is retained, so that we can actually tie back these for display back to the user using the user interface that we create for the solutions. Now, the ACL, we provide, tools for you to actually interact with your Active Directory. So, like you can see, as soon as I pointed my, the ACL Migrator tool to the XML document that actually holds all the application roles and users group information, it actually tied back into an AD environment for me to interact with, the actual AD to actually get read-only information from the AD environment and tie it back. So you have the capability to actually map these to the appropriate, usernames or groups within an AD environment. So that's the 4 areas, critical areas of migration that we typically address as part of the Composer solution, which is your user interface, business logic, security, and data. The next thing I want to get into is, Matt was talking about the whole ART process, where we actually have a methodology that we have in place, which helps us identify, the cost and time for these migrations. And the ART process is very important for us to actually use to actually determine the actual cost of the migration or the time frames of migration. So we have an application analyzer that actually helps us do that. So what you should be seeing on the screen now is an application analyzer. Keep in mind, this is not a platform, analyzer, but this is more specific to, the specific applications that you are looking to migrate to the .NET or, the SharePoint platforms. So what you're seeing here is actually a tree view and a summary of the various design elements, because we actually determine, the design element index or the design complexity index of these applications that we look at for migration. And this tool actually allows us to dig deeper into these applications and look at, some of the restrictions you might have. So in this case, as soon as I clicked on the InfoPath related restrictions that you might have for migration, it actually shows us, what are the things that might not get translated as part of this migration, which might require some manual coding and effort as part of the solution itself for migration to the InfoPath environment. So this is a helpful tool for us, as part of our methodology that we actually use to actually determine, targeting of these applications to the Microsoft stack. Matt, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, again, this goes back to our approach here of, this whole effort and being able to do this analysis really helps us get to the point where we can deliver you a fixed fee, fixed scope proposal. We really need to dig deep into the application. We need to go through the process of refining the application through a discovery with you. But this whole effort, again, is really to deliver you that fixed fee, fixed scope proposal and provide you all the data you need, as Suresh said, to target SharePoint and ASP.NET.
So talking about SharePoint, what I also wanted to mention is, we offer 3 possible solutions into SharePoint. One is your template one-to-one mapping of data. So here's where, typically if you have used any of the Fabulous 50 templates, we actually, sorry, not the Fabulous 50, the Nifty 50 templates like the team rooms, document libraries, discussion boards, and things like that. You actually have the capability to migrate those directly into your Fab 40, data-only migration to SharePoint. The second offering that we do is the SharePoint application itself, a native SharePoint app where data is migrated into a SharePoint repository and the UI is actually translated into InfoPath web forms. So in this case, there are some restrictions that the InfoPath web forms dictate in terms of what we can actually have in the new world. So those are actually addressed as part of the whole envisioning planning phases of these projects for us to actually deliver these solutions into the SharePoint environment. And the third one is your SharePoint like for like that Matt was also talking about, where we actually provide these applications as web parts into SharePoint, and then the whole navigation and everything else actually is exactly like your SharePoint quick links and document libraries and things like that in the SharePoint environment. So we actually do provide applications into the SharePoint target if you choose that's your target. But then since most of these applications are pretty complex in a line of business back office applications, we have seen that from our experience that most of the customers typically have those heavy lifting apps going to a .NET target for deployment. One other thing that I also wanted to show here was the web services. So let me just quickly bring up the web services for you and show you what we actually offer in terms of web services. So like you can see, this is a list of the default out-of-the-box web services that we extend these applications for. The various select capabilities, the delete capabilities, update capabilities on forms and views and things like that. So, Matt?
Okay, great. Let's see. Suresh, thank you for an extremely informative demo there. Before we go into Q&A, I just want to wrap up the the presentation here. So, to review what's been discussed so far, as opposed to a rewrite, migration is better suited for applications that are meeting your business requirements today, and where preserving application functionality is a key objective. A like-for-like migration, again, minimizes end-user disruption and helps drive rapid user adoption of the new platform. The ART process, the Analyze, Refine, and Target process, is unique to our Composer offering. Applications must be analyzed, again, as Suresh talked about, at the attribute level to only migrate what is necessary and to target the right landing spot in the .NET stack, which is either InfoPath SharePoint or ASP.NET. Composer for Lotus Notes is a complete end-to-end solution for migrating all of your applications to Microsoft, including your most hairy, complex Notes apps, as we mentioned. Composer is delivered as a fixed fee, fixed scope software plus services solution. And before we get into the QA, we're going to spend a couple minutes here collecting the questions, and feel free to ask any questions here, type in any questions, and we'll address them in about 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you.
So looking at the Q&A, here are some questions that have been posted as of right now. One of the questions is, do you provide the capability to go against a domino server for application security? Absolutely. We do provide the capability to go against either AD or, if you have a mixed environment where you also have Domino as your provider, the only requirement that we have is it should actually be providing LDAP capabilities enabled. So if it can provide that, we can go against Domino for your security that has been migrated. The next one.
Do we need to have the Composer solution in the app server in order to support the migrated apps? And the answer to that is no, you do not require the Composer solution. So we are migrating this application to a Visual Studio development environment. There is no runtime involved. You pretty much are going to be in the Microsoft side of the fence here, and we're providing a standard application that you can build out and extend in Visual Studio.
Yeah, and adding to that, we provide you with the source codes for some of the interaction that typically happens during runtime for the data abstraction layer and the security and the business logic. So there's nothing that we hold back. We provide you with everything that's required to actually run it independently.
Here's another question. Can the blob handle the doc link or view link?
Yes, it does handle doc links as part of the solution. Yes.
We got another question here for rich text conversion. Editing converted data has tabled sections. Will that be okay?
Yes, we do support the HTML table components within the rich text fields. So like I don't know if you actually noticed, the sections that I showed you actually had table data in it. So so we do provide that support.
Here's another question specific to SharePoint. When uploading, attaching documents to an entry, are you able to search through these attachments as well, like you were able to do in the notes, regardless of whether the file is hidden to some users?
The search capability on the SharePoint side is, whatever SharePoint provides you with search capabilities, that's what we support. So if SharePoint does provide you with capabilities to search through attachments, or it's been enabled for document level, searches, we do support.
Okay, so we had a question here. Can you define the type of partnerships available with Unified? So that's a timely question. We are actually just building out our partner model, and we offer both registered partner options as well as certified partner options. Registered partner options more have a referral fee type basis and or a margin associated with an engagement. Certified partners we would train on our process, and they would be a key piece of providing an end-to-end solution to the customer. We would still do the code migration, but they would fill out the rest of the end-to-end solution, both from the analysis and discovery to the QA and test, deployment, ongoing support, as well as extending and enhancing that application to meet the future business requirements of the organization.
There's another question here with regards to office automation. So do you provide the same level of support for office automation like export to Excel and Word integration and things like that? Yes, we do out of the box provide support for office automation as part of the application. So there's no functionality that's actually left behind. Anything that's currently part of your existing applications for office integration, all that is actually retained.
Okay, we're going to wait here to see if there's any additional questions. Okay, there's a question here on rapid development environment like Notes. How do you compare with SharePoint?
The development environment is Visual Studio, so
I guess from my perspective, SharePoint obviously offers a lot of out-of-the-box functionality. It's a hard-coded environment, and it offers you the ability to build applications with a no-coding approach. But as you get into your complex applications, there are a lot of your business logic workflow that's in Notes will not migrate natively to SharePoint, and that's where we give you that flexibility and the option to migrate the application to ASP.NET and come back into that environment via web parts. The Visual Studio development environment is a very robust environment, and I think that's from a rapid application development perspective, comparing it to Notes. From my perspective, I'm not sure. I don't know, Suresh, you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Notes developer, but from what I've seen, definitely Notes does provide you with a very rapid application development environment, but the Microsoft environment also does. So, the comparison is equal, I guess, between the two. One other question was, have you utilized Kerberos in an application migration? Typically for application security, what we do is we actually tie into the Windows NTLM capabilities of your environment. So, if we have seen that in some environments, you got to actually also include deploy Kerberos on Windows servers to actually enable Windows NTLM across domains and stuff. So. We don't utilize that, but it's purely, the deployment environment and how your environment is set up for, Windows NTLM.
Okay, we have some additional question coming in here. Are you able to select items from the DMS and the SharePoint and attach them to emails? And comparing it to Notes, when you are able to select tick items, right-click and select a copy.
So as far as the email contents that actually go out as part of workflows and things like that for Notes applications, we retain content that is currently that's part of your applications. So if there is content that's actually tied to Notes documents being embedded within the email content, we don't support that, but we do support links where you can just click on an email link content and just get to the document through authenticated means to the actual document data in the new world. So.
Okay, we got another question here. Does Composer provide external interface application support?
Yeah, if your applications are interacting with, say, things like DB2 or mainframe data through an external interface, we do provide support for those as part of the solution. So any functionality that involves external integration, we do address those as part of the migration. So there's nothing that's left behind.
And one final question here we've got for workflow: can Notes Mail still be used?
Yes. So the email provider could actually be Outlook or Exchange or your Notes. So the only requirement is that we need to have SMTP enabled, and also if you're actually using mail-in databases for your Notes databases for agents actually processing mail-in documents, in those cases we need to have IMAP enabled for the Lotus Notes folders that are actually being used for storing the messages that are coming in through the mail-in databases.
Great. Thanks, Suresh. So I hope this presentation was real helpful to you all. If there's any additional questions here that come in, we'll have your representative follow up with you to make sure that they're answered properly. I did want to mention that you can go to unify.com. We offer white papers there, brochures on Composer. There's a flash demo that's real informative. Or you can contact us at composer@unify.com as a follow-up if you like additional information. Also, we are going to be at the World Partner Conference, booth number 277 in Houston, Texas, and that's coming up July 7th through 10th. Thanks for your time, and have a great day.